And welcome, everyone, to another episode of World Hockey Report. Yes, it is Thursday here in Week 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Filling in, calling in the left-hander, the relief pitcher today, or the relief host today, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl, filling in here for Cody Janzen on this Thursday, typically part of Kuehl Tuesdays. But we're filling in lots and hard this week because we have so much going on, and we're only, 3 nights into the playoffs? My goodness, guys. We got a lot to go on here today on this Thursday, last day of the week here on World Hockey Report. We're not just going to talk about the Lightning coming back in a big way to literally no one's surprise, at least it shouldn't be. We're going to talk about the Canes beating up the Bruins. Well, that's kind of a surprise, at least the way how it's gone. We're going to talk about how the fact that the Minnesota Wild came back in a big way. They can score goals. Hey, that Kirill Kaprizov guy, he's pretty good as well, to no one's surprise. And also coming up here in about 20 minutes time, about 15 minutes now, I look at my clock, we're going to talk with the mayor himself, Mayor's Manor's John Hoven, to talk about the Los Angeles Kings series against the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, Edmonton coming back with a 6-0 win last night, evening up that series at 1 apiece. A lot of series tied up at 1 apiece now after last night's games. The only one at least from the Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday will be the Boston Bruins trailing 2-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll also get to some of the news as well as teeing up the games that are going on tonight. Okay, that's where we're going to be joined at the top of the hour 2. We'll be joined at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Mountain Time. Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers joining us to tee up the game tonight. He'll actually be on the way to the game to FLA Live to get ready for the Panthers, who are trailing, the President's Trophy winners, trailing after 1 game to the Washington Capitals. Like we said, we'll get some latest news as well. Let's get to some news that's kind of happened over the last little bit. There was an announcement today from Darren Dreger of TSN saying that the World Junior Championships in 2023 that were initially supposed to be scheduled to be played in Russia, taken away, of course, by the IHF, coming out and pretty much saying, hey, guys, I got an idea. Let's move it to a junior rink. Junior venues. Now, Cody Janzen and I have talked about this many times in the past. We are big fans of having the junior tournaments put in smaller rinks. And one of the our big example is the 2010 final between U.S. and Canada in Saskatoon, which is, at least in North America, was the last time we had something like that. Because I tell you what, it was an exciting, crazy event. It was loud. The buildup was great. It was a small rink, sure, compared to an NHL-sized barn, but it just felt like a better environment. It seemed like it was a lot more fun, more exciting. And so now, 2023, in December of 2022 at least, is where it'll start, in Halifax and Moncton. And, oh man, it's Halifax, Nova Scotia, and I love the Maritimes. I've been a little bit of a Mooseheads fan for a little bit here. That could be with my association to the beverage that's brewed in Canada. I like Moosehead beer. But yeah, no, it's a real exciting time for that because I like having junior rinks. So great news coming out of the IHF. The 2023 World Juniors coming to Canada. So yes, if you're keeping track at home, that means there is, 3 tournaments in a row that are in Canada. Yes, I understand that. Edmonton, then Halifax. But obviously, getting moved to Halifax from Russia is a pretty obvious and kind of understandable move by the IHF in this case. I am a little bummed they didn't think about moving it to a European country, a different one, whether it be Finland, Sweden, or even Czech Republic. I know it's hosted it a time or two before. Switzerland, I think, would be a great venue. There's whispers that next year's World Championships might move. We'll have to just kind of have a wait and see on that. But nonetheless, let's get into the playoffs here, guys. There is a lot. Also, by the way, we are live as usual, as always, every single show here from the Pro Rock Broadcast Studios. Be sure to follow us everywhere, guys. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everywhere at World Hockey RPT. You can follow me if you want. The insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl, at TJKU29. Let's get into the games we had in last night here. Like I said, in a little over 10 minutes time, John Hoven from the Los Angeles Kings will join us to talk about the Oilers coming back to tie the series last night in a very sizable manner. But let's talk about one of the few 2-0 series we have. Now, granted, the game twos are tonight, so that could obviously change, but at least not many of us expected the Carolina Hurricanes to handle the Boston Bruins in the first two games, right? I mean, first of all, no Frederik Andersen, no starting goaltender. Antti Raanta in game one. What does he do? Stands on his head. Okay, that's pretty good. Game two. Well, Boston's probably going to come out with a better effort. And, well, they did, I think. I don't say a better effort, but it seemed like the same start. They came out hard. They came out fast. They were getting shots right away. And to be honest, I was expecting they were going to score first, especially when David Pastrnak ends up running into Antti Raanta, knocking him out of the game just minutes in. And I thought to myself, oh boy, this could be trouble. And now, granted, I will admit, this is a Canes team that's very well structured defensively. I mean, you go down the laundry list in the back end. I mean, they have Jarvis, they have Falk, they have Pesci. Not Falk, excuse me. This ain't 2020. This ain't 2016. But they have Pesci back there. And yes, they have Tony DeAngelo. Say what you want about him. He's still a great defenseman. He ends up getting 3 assists in the game, by the way, Tony DeAngelo. I really think that the way that game went, almost not a mirror image, but you saw that similar defensive structure with the offensive prowess that you saw in the David Ayres game. I did have some fun. I actually tweeted at David Ayres' wife, and she kind of laughed. We kind of had a little back and forth on Twitter last night. I say, "Where's your husband? They might need him tonight." Jack LaFontaine ended up being the backup goaltender because Pyotr Kochetkov had to come into the game. Now, Kochetkov's played a couple games this year due to the Canes' injury woes in net, and has played all right. You know, he's played well, but he's never been in the playoffs before. And now, granted, neither had Antti Raanta. And I think Kochetkov played well. And I think to his credit, though, while he did play well, he didn't have to be the game saver, which I think is super important for a guy that's making his first start. Well, no, not his first start. In his first appearance in the playoffs. Because remember, he never has had to be in a playoff scenario before. He probably didn't expect to do so. But the Canes, they bunkered down. They played tough. They played smart. And you know what? Eventually they were able to get things going in their general direction. And it really all started with Sebastian Aho. And I mean, the guy's a fantastic hockey player. I think he's one of those guys. Jesper Foss, of course, had the first goal. I should mention that, beating Linus Ullmark. But Sebastian Aho was effective in this game. That line with him and Nino Niederreiter was just on point. I think between the two of them, they combined for 5 points because I believe Aho had 3 off the top of my head. Now I can't remember. Aho had... Nope, they just had 4 goals between the two of them. I thought someone had 3 points. DeAngelo was the only one that did have 3 points in the win. But Aho with the tip then early on in the second period. It's 3-0 before you know it. Everyone's already looking at Jeremy Swayman from the Boston bench. I really thought Carolina played the perfect game here. And to the Bruins' credit, they were able to try to keep it close. I mean, they had their chances, and Kochetkov made some nice saves. Patrice Bergeron ends up scoring both goals for Boston. But the big question is in goal, and also the fact that they gave up 9 power plays to Carolina. And I know Boston fans saying, you know, the refs were out to get them and whatever. I'm like, listen, I think we all can agree with this. The refs have been tight across the board. I mean, we'll get to the Toronto-Tampa game here in a minute, too. So the fact that Bruins fans are all of a sudden up in arms that the fact that someone is penalizing their team in the playoffs, I know it's a new concept to all of us here. The thing is, though, is the fact that, I mean, you got to find a way to stay out of the penalty box against Carolina because while they are really good at being a defensively minded team and playing tough in their own zone and swallowing things up in the neutral zone and what have you, the fact of the matter is this. It's that they are doing a great job of being able to cash in on their opportunities. And Carolina, like we said, went 2 for 9 on the power play. Boston wasn't able to convert on their chances, and because they did get a couple. They went 1 for 5. One of Bergeron's goals was on the power play. And we get 2 goals for Nino Niederreiter, along with to go with Jesper Foss. Kochetkov ends up getting the win. All of a sudden, you have two goaltenders back-to-back in their first playoff games, or at least, first start for Ranta and then first for Kochetkov, first appearance, and you win back-to-back games. And that just shows why, we always talk about you need a Stanley Cup winning goaltender. You need a goaltender that can win you a Stanley Cup. Sure. But what Carolina has proven, at least in these first two games against the Bruins, who I know that we probably consider the underdog in this series, not just because they're the wild card team, because they are a little older. But the fact of the matter is that Carolina has shown that they can win with whoever's back there. And that is coming from Rod Brind'Amour down, that just shows how good they are structured-wise in their own zone. That's why they're up going 2-0 into Boston, and Jeremy Swayman starting Game 3 tomorrow night. To no one's surprise, I thought the way Allmark played in Game 1 that they were going to go with him. They're going to go with Swayman in Game 2. I don't know if that's a move that's going to come out back and bite Bruce Cassidy in the butt. Might be too little too late, but now the Bruins have to go back. And we know Boston, TD Garden, can get a little loud, a little hectic, and could possibly favor the home team in this series. And you know what? They're going to need it if they want to move on, or even have a chance, not move on, even have a chance to get back into this series. Because obviously Carolina, they're feeding off the hometown crowd. Indeed. So big go for them. Let's move on over here to the Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild, we were all, I don't say we were all yelling about it, but I was pretty concerned the way they were unable to beat Ville Husso on Monday night. I said it on the show Tuesday. I'm like, listen, they got goalied. Ville Husso played a great game. The difference between Game 1 and Game 2 for the Wild was the fact of this. Minnesota actually scored. That was the difference, because Minnesota came out hard in the first period in Game 1. They didn't beat Husso, and it kind of affected them a little bit. And then David Perron ended up scoring a hat trick. Marc-Andre Fleury kicks out a few juicy rebounds, and that's how the Wild lost Game 1. Game 2, they were able to get out in front early, and it did take a minute. Let's be honest here. It took them a little bit. But, they found the right guys. You get Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson gets one early, and then, of course, Freddie Gaudreau also finding the back of the net as well. And Marc-Andre Fleury made some big saves in that second period. I know some people were thinking, similar to Boston, hey, he gave up 4 goals. Let's put in Talbot for Game 2. I think Dean Evason and a lot of us realize that Marc-Andre Fleury, the guy doesn't have 3 Stanley Cup rings for no reason. But Tyler, 2016 and 2017, he wasn't the goaltender. I know he was not the goaltender in 16 and 17. I get that. What's up, World Hockey Report? That is what City Life Project jumping on in there. And if you guys are watching right now or listening, well, if you're listening, you can probably have to comment on it later. But if you're watching right now live on the Hockey Podcast Network or 12-Ounce Sports right now, whether it be on the family of networks or the YouTube channels, be sure to jump in the comments. Let us know if you have any questions, of course, and your comments on the games last night, including what ended up being a 6-2 win for the Minnesota Wild. And don't forget, too, it's 6-2, and you say, wow, that's kind of one-sided. Well, it was 4-2 for a minute because Vladimir Tarasenko, or Jordan Kyrou scored in the second period. Tarasenko scored to make it 4-2 early in the third, and kind of put a bit of a seed of doubt because St. Louis was coming in that third period, and Marc-Andre Fleury had to make some big saves. That's why I think, the 32 save performance he has last night gets the win. I think that's why it's a real big bounce back game for him. He looked a lot more comfortable, I think, as well. And that's something, too, for a goaltender that gets traded at the deadline. I say it doesn't happen much anymore because of the fact that the last time it really happened, at least the big marquee trade that happened with a goaltender at the deadline, was Ryan Miller back in 2014. And St. Louis Blues fans still have not forgiven the Brass for that kind of maneuver because it did not help them in the playoffs. They ended up getting knocked out by, was it Chicago? No, was it Chicago? I can't remember now. They got knocked out before they even realized they were in the playoffs because that's how bad Ryan Miller was for the Blues. And Fleury, like I said, to his credit, came back, played well, and like I said, probably saved the game in a couple of instances because if St. Louis makes it a 4-3 game, who knows what happens? Kaprizov ends up scoring 2 more and ends up getting the hat trick. Joel Eriksson should have probably had the hat trick, but a review of an offsides call ended up overturning that goal. Then Kaprizov puts in the empty netter shortly thereafter, which was funny because there were a few hats left because that was the funniest part of the whole thing. Eriksson gets a tip. He scores. Or doesn't have a tip. He puts in a follow-up on a rebound. And place goes nuts. Hats are flying everywhere. They're all going crazy. It's 6-2. The game's over. And then all of a sudden, we have a review for offsides. And they can't give the hats back. So there are a few hats left for Kaprizov's hat trick goal. But nonetheless, big goal for him. Big goal for the Wild. Big win for the Wild. 6-2 going back to St. Louis. I know it's not ideal given the fact that they had home ice advantage, but we'll just have to wait and see. Is Mike Smith the best goalie in the playoffs? Cody Janzen, you're just trying to get at me, aren't you? You're just trying to make me say something I'm not supposed to. Well, listen, in a few minutes' time, we'll ask John Hoven if Mike Smith's the best goalie in the playoffs. Picked up the shutout last night. We'll get to that game here on the other side here on World Hockey Report. But, guys, I got to tell you, before we get to that chat with John Hoven coming up here in just a little bit time, it is Stanley Cup playoff time in the National Hockey League. And if you want some way to save some money before your next ticket purchase, because tickets are not cheap for the playoffs. I mean, apparently, I guess they're not too bad in Nashville. But for, especially in Canada, if you want to go to a Leafs game or something like that, they're expensive. But, however, there's a way to save you a buck or two. Sign up for SeatGeek and use the promo code WHR. That's right, World Hockey Reports, the 3 letters, WHR, when checking out. It's that simple on SeatGeek, because when you use the promo code WHR, your first purchase, you will save $20. Once again, use WHR to get $20 off at SeatGeek. So with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by none other than the Mayor's Manor. The man who is not an insider, if you ask him. He's not an insider. He is the mayor for the Los Angeles Kings. He is none other than John Hoven, a guy I've actually talked to before. Now, granted, it's been a few years. The last time I talked to him, I remember it was it was right after John Stevens was fired. So that should be all you need to know about the last time he was let go. So with that, let's take a pause here. We'll have a little quick break here on World Hockey Report. When we come on the other side, we'll talk Kings and Oilers. Series tied at 1. When we come back here on World Hockey Report.
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey Contest. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Take your game to the next level with Pro Rock hockey sticks. Pro Rock is changing the way we buy top-of-the-line twigs. They're lightweight, balanced, and provide the perfect kick point, whether you're a pro hockey player or a beer league legend. Pro Rock hockey sticks are made for you. They're at a price point you can't beat, so check them out today at prorock.com. Play like a Pro Rock.
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Hockey Contest. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus, restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
And we are back here on World Hockey Report, here on this Thursday edition of WHR. Here we are going to be talking Oilers and Kings. Big win for the Edmonton Oilers last night to get back in after losing Game 1 on Monday night, a 6-0 win. Big game for Evander Kane. Jesse Puljujarvi finds the back of the net. Leon Draisaitl the whole 9 yards. But the team that's still in this series and kind of caused a stir with a Game 1 win were the Kings. And now to help me explain how that happened and what this team needs to do to get back after last night, the guy who follows the LA Kings. I'm not going to call him an insider. No, he is the mayor himself, writing for Mayor's Manor, covering the LA Kings all the time. One of the best in the game. John Hoven joins me now here on World Hockey Report. John, how you doing today, sir?
Doing outstanding. It's playoff time. That means it's a good time, especially here in Los Angeles.
In sunny Los Angeles. John told me what the weather is like down there, and I'm already jealous and whatnot. But, John, how are you feeling after last night's game? Obviously, Game 1 was great. The eye followed. Deneau, Moreline was clicking in that 4-3 win on Monday. Last night, though, not quite as good. A 6-0 loss here. How are you feeling about that game last night?
Well, I think that there was definitely a difference between the two games, and not just on the scoreboard. I think in the way that the Kings approached the game. Game 1 reminded me of a very typical LA Kings game this season. It was very workmanlike, and they just did what they had to do. They were opportunistic with their goal scoring. The special teams wasn't necessarily there, but that's not a difference from throughout the season. And then you saw the big two centers in Kopitar and Deneau effectively shutting down the top players on Edmonton. So it was very much rinse and repeat for what we saw much of the season out of the LA Kings. Didn't get that same sense in Game 2. Game 2 to me was a little bit more of Edmonton coming out not only with the physicality, but wanting to dictate and dominate the pace and style of play. And LA never really seemed to find their rhythm. It was, scoreless after 20. The Kings were okay in the first period, but at the end of that first period, you started getting the sense that Edmonton was momentum was tipping in their favor a little bit, and certainly that's what we saw for the balance of the 40 minutes. So, as I said on Twitter last night, just in summary, whether it's a 2-1 loss or a 6-0 loss, it's a loss. And, you went to Edmonton, you picked up a split, it's 1-1, you come back to LA, and whenever a playoff series moves to the other city, things kind of reset anyway. So whether it was 1-1 or whether they were up 2-0, LA has to go into this mindset of Game 3 being that the series is resetting, and now it's just about looking forward.
Yeah, it's a best of 5 now between these two teams, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, like I talked about a little bit on Tuesday, talking with Jack Michaels from the Edmonton Oilers. We said that this was going to be a tight series no matter what, how the Kings have played him. But he said that the X factor, and him and I both agreed on this, the X factor for the Kings going into this series, obviously the Deneau line was going to be big. Kopitar was going to have to play big. But it's the man between the pipes, Jonathan Quick, is going to have to be the guy if LA wants to get through to the second round. And we certainly saw that in Game 1. And I'll be honest with you, John, former goaltender myself and card-carrying member of the goaltending union, I don't really put that loss last night on Jonathan Quick. You look at the way those goals went. Quick is still one of the best goaltenders in the league, and I really think he's starting to find that form that we saw almost a decade ago, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't certainly hang the loss last night on Jonathan Quick either. I was actually a little bit surprised that McClellan didn't put Peterson in there at some point during the third period just to give his backup goaltender a little bit of taste of playoff hockey, especially on the road. The game was getting a little bit out of hand. Give Jonathan Quick a little bit more rest. But, I would have to disagree. Coming into the series, I didn't view Quick as the X factor. I think if you just look at the matchup, and that's what we do in a playoff series, right? We look at the goaltending, we look at the forwards, the defensemen, the special teams, the coaching, etc. I'll take Jonathan Quick over Mike Smith every day of the week, and I've been on record as saying that now for well over a decade. So I didn't really view Quick as the X factor, especially given the fact that I had watched him so closely throughout the season. He was the more consistent of the Kings' two goaltenders. He was certainly better in the second half of the season. So we expected At least I would say I expected Jonathan Quick to perform admirably and still do in the balance of the series. I took LA in 6 games, so the fact that it's 1-1 doesn't overly concern me at this point. For me, the X factor really was going to be 2 things. It was going to be the young Kings defensemen, guys like Jordan Spence, who I think doesn't get enough credit, and we should really talk a lot more about. This is a first-year pro player. This isn't just a rookie in the National Hockey League that has spent the last couple of years cutting his teeth in the AHL. This is a first-year pro player coming out of the Quebec League on top of that. So not even like he came out of the OHL or the WHL, which by many people would be considered more similar or closer at least to the NHL,
right.
Just for younger players. So the X factors to me, again, would have been the younger defensemen and then also been the bottom 6. There had been a cast of characters sort of rotating there among the bottom 6. You have guys like Quentin Byfield, who's still a teenager, in that bottom 6 role. You had Brendan Lemieux in and out of that bottom 6 role, but the guy that I was most impressed with in Game 1 was Carl Grundstrom. I like what he's been able to bring to that bottom 6 group.
And that's important, too, for these guys, too. And no matter how far the Kings get in these playoffs, is the fact that, if you really want this team to press and be a contender in the years to come, is to get these youngsters that are just coming into the league or just really making their first postseason experience to get these games in. So the next time when LA's really trying to make a push, in the next year or two and whatnot, that they're ready and they're ready to be X factors possibly going forward.
Yeah, getting experience for these young players is important too, but I've heard people say the Kings are playing with house money and things like that, and I just don't tend to buy into that sort of thinking. The Kings put up a 99-point season. They very easily could have, picked up another point somewhere along the way in 82 games. You're talking about a 100-point season, and you look at where this team was not only last year, but over the last 2 or 3 years. They made the decision in December of 2018 to kind of turn the page and go with a recreate, a rebuild, call it whatever you want. They've exited out Jake Muzzin and a number of other different veteran players, Jeff Carter last year, et cetera. And the page has been turned. And everything that's gone on over the last couple of years, as far as I'm concerned, is now all forgotten. It's all in the past. It's all about from this moment looking forward. And from a Kings perspective, I like the matchup. I think they played Edmonton close this year. I think that even though the two teams are built differently, and even though that Edmonton does come with a highly weaponized power play, which could be kryptonite for the Kings and their lack of success on special teams. When you look at 5-on-5, when you look at the 2 centers down the middle in Kopitar and Danault and their ability to really shut down top players, and again, back to Jonathan Quick and the success that he's had between the pipes this year, I think that coming in, it was a lot closer on paper than people believed that it was going to be, and that's one of the reasons why I picked the Kings in 6 games. So now it's tied 1-1. You come home for Game 3, it'll reset, like I said. I think if LA takes care of business at home, they have more than a puncher's chance to go ahead and win this series, regardless of what happened on the scoreboard in Game 2.
Cody Janzen said I was a little ambitious saying Kings in 5, but then again, that's because I think I think LA has the goaltending battle here, if you ask me. But last question before I let you go here, Mr. Mayor. I gotta know, because the overlooming cloud for me going into this series was the lack of number 8 on the blue line for LA. How big do you think of a gap is on that blue line? We mentioned Jordan Spence and some of the younger guys that are stepping in here. But Drew Doughty not being there, we know the kind of character this guy is and what he can bring to the table. Do you think that would really maybe affect LA in this series and maybe moving forward if they can move on?
Well, I think there are a couple different things there to sort of unpack. You cannot underscore enough or the lack of Drew Doughty or him being out of the lineup. You're talking about an all-world defenseman, much like Jonathan Quick. People have tried to write him off over the last couple of years, and for anybody that wants to think that Drew Doughty has slipped over the last couple of years, you're sadly mistaken. This is still one of the absolute best defensemen on the planet, and his experience, his competitiveness makes all the difference in the world, and he really would make this team much better, not only against Edmonton, but of course if they were to advance past Edmonton and go a little bit further in the playoffs. I look back to there was a time period in 92-93 season when Wayne Gretzky was out of the lineup for the LA Kings and other players sort of realized that, hey, we can't stand around and watch Wayne anymore. We now need to focus more specifically on our positions, and it elevated everybody else. Luc Robitaille had an outstanding season that year, scored something like 68 goals, 29 on the power play, give or take. Fantastic. All of the other forwards were able to raise their game as well. And I think that you're starting to see that, or you have seen that here for over half a season. Drew played less than 40 games this year. So the Kings have gotten used to, if that's possible, playing without number 8 in the lineup this season. It's not only Jordan Spence. It's the coming out party of Sean Dursey, who really broke into the NHL back in November. It's Alex Edler. What a fantastic acquisition. We spend a lot of time talking about, Philippe Deneau and Victor Arvidsson and what they've meant to the LA Kings, but also don't sleep on Alex Edler. He's been tremendous from a veteran leadership perspective, from a hard, heavy defenseman. He gives them something different there on the blue line as well. I mean, I could just go on down the line. Ole Mata's played much better this year than he did last year as well. So everybody's sort of settling into their roles. You've had Jacob Mavar. You've had a number of different younger players in and out of that lineup as well. Matt Roy is a steady Eddie back there on defense. So they know their role. It's next man up. They just get the job done. And the Kings still do have a couple of other players on the sidelines if they needed to in a pinch that they could put in there. Guys like Tobias Bjornfoot, who hasn't had a game yet here in the playoffs, but, Bjornfoot is somebody who was a first-round draft pick. And there still are high hopes, and he has a great future, bright future in Los Angeles in front of him. So that defensive group obviously would be much better with Drew Doughty back there on the blue line. But the fact that he's not there, they've been able to win games and put that 99-point season up on the board this year during the regular season. So inside that room, they believe that they can still get it done and that they can beat Edmonton even without Drew Doughty.
Hey, sometimes the best way to look at things is with an optimistic point of view, and if you can do that, who knows what you can do. LA right now, that game is tomorrow night. That is a 10 o'clock start at Crypto.com Arena. I almost said the other one there, John, the old one. I have to make sure I get the right name, make sure I get my money's worth in this one here. We've been chatting up here with John Hoven, the mayor himself. Guys, go follow him. Mayor's Manor at Mayor NHL on Twitter. Get the latest and best every single day from the Los Angeles Kings. John, I know you're a busy guy. It's playoff time in California, the first time in 3 years. Thanks for very much for taking the time, man.
Always appreciate it. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, that was John Hoven from the LA Kings, Mayor's Manor. He is a wonderful guy. I remember, like I said, I'm pretty sure he forgot him and I had the conversation, but I talked to him the week after John Stevens was fired back in the 18-19 season. And let's put it this way, maybe call it full circle, if you will. Since then, the Kings have not been great, and then now they're great now. So, hey, look at that. Thanks to all of you that are jumping in the chat right now. Sorry we couldn't get to them. We wanted to make sure we got our questions in with John Hoven. Soda Pod saying, "Go Kings, go." And like I said, I'm the only guy on this show that was going all for the Mr. Kings, if you will, of the NHL. Cody Janzen saying best save percentage of active goalies in the playoffs with over 15 games played. Minnesota wishes they had Smith. Janner just trying to stir the pot. Soda Pod, what do you think about that? What do you want to hear? What you saying there, Hoppy? What you got there? Avs versus Bolts final. Dylan Kaiser. Well, that's interesting. Dunder Mifflin Arena. Where did Dunder Mifflin Arena come from here? What is going on here? I'm all for Kings. Edmonton is a joke. Oh, Dunder Mifflin Arena, because talking about Crypto.com. Okay. Yeah, coming up with different names. Staples Center, man. It's funny, Chris Vosters. So the Chris Vosters, who I actually worked with in the past here in the Midwest, he's the new play-by-play voice, TV play-by-play voice for the Chicago Blackhawks, taking over for the legendary Pat Foley, who retired this season. And he's done his best to, I think he said it on the broadcast, their first game in LA towards the end of the regular season, he said Staples Center once, and he's like, oh man, because obviously he's a Hawks fan, but he's also watched the Bulls play the Lakers and the Clippers in basketball. So he's so used to saying Staples Center. That's why I did a TikTok months ago, about rinks that still had their names, like their original names. And there's was it 9? I think it was 9 from last time I checked. The oldest one that has its own original name is Madison Square Garden, of course, which is where the Rangers will take on the Penguins game at 2 tonight. We'll get to that one later. Or Tyler, honestly, let's see. Preds wish they had Janner in net for them. Janner and I were talking about this yesterday. Janner said he was never. I asked him because we were talking about not being superstitious or whatever. I'm like, how are you a goaltender not superstitious, Janner? He said, I never said I was a good one. I'm like, all right, well, to each their own, I guess. What else we got coming in on the chat line here? Is Mike Smith the best goalie in the playoffs? Okay, this is a good way to maybe wrap this up here with the Oilers and the Kings. Smith played a better game. 30 save shutout. A great bounce back from the gaff he had at the end of game 1. 100%. He did play better. But I'll be honest with you. He did make some big saves in that first period when LA came out strong. That one squeaker, though, the one squeak behind him, I remember I was watching it with the wife, and I'm like, oh, gosh, here we go again. Because Mike Smith has been known sometimes where everything hits him and everything catches. He catches everything. There's games like that. But then there's games where it seems like the puck will hit him and who knows what's going to happen after that. And that's Mike Smith. He is literally polar opposite. And that's what makes him a very interesting goaltender. One thing I forgot to mention, by the way, turning things back, City Life Project gives Flames to the Cup, baby. Well, they looked okay in game one. We'll get, like I said, we'll preview that one later. One thing we forgot to mention on the Boston-Carolina side before we talk to John there, $5,000 fine for Brad Marchand for slashing Pyotr Kochetkov. Now, this was something that was pretty funny to me because Kochetkov, I don't know if he just doesn't pay attention to the NHL that much, but he did something last night that all of us wanted to do to Brad Marchand at some point or another, and that was go back at Marchand. And Kochetkov's got some size on him, I at least in height and reach and whatnot. But it was so funny to see him swing the stick at Marchand, and Marchand try to go back at him, and Kochetkov's like, I don't care. And I listened to the radio today, and a couple guys were saying like, oh my gosh, it's kind of funny, and it's good to see your goaltender stand up for himself. He's quite the character, but we don't want Jack LaFontaine to play right now. Don't hurt yourself. Even though I still say this, Jack LaFontaine, had he stayed in Minnesota and Carolina didn't have goaltending problems earlier this year, I think LaFontaine would have won the Richter Award for best goaltender in college hockey. That's just me. Smith is way too aggressive and has a disability in covering up that 5-hole. Taryn Boot, buddy, you are right there on the money there, friends. If we went back to old school 1995 hockey where guys just went down the wing and took Clapper's 5-hole, Mike Smith's goals against average would look like a goaltender that played in 1995. And no, I'm not talking about the trap year. No, 1995 when guys were still putting up points like crazy. Jaromir Jagr was throwing up like 140 points a year. Like, it's tough. And Taryn Boot says, I just hate Edmonton being a Flames fan and the fact that they burnt so many years of McDavid's prime already. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there, Taryn, because listen, I mean, there was just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that people were yelling, hey, is McDavid going to want to trade? I mean, we saw how miserable he was. And you know what? The team is better, sure, but the question still looms over the Oilers. Can they get it done? We saw the seed of doubt planted in game one. Sure, Draisaitl did score in that game. McDavid scored in that game. They still lost. Was it the one gaffe by Smith that was highlighted? Sure, but there was a series of errors made by Edmonton outside of those two. So, big game, though, for Edmonton last night. They bounced back the way they needed to. Now they're going to LA, and honestly, that's, to John's point, it's a different, you're going to your home barn, you feel a little more comfortable, and it's a new series now tied at 1. But here's the thing. From a viewer's perspective, from the outside perspective, I see this as Rogers Place versus Crypto.com Arena. Because yes, I will say this, during that run in the early 2010s for the LA Kings, that arena might have been a little tough to play in, especially in the playoffs. It was pretty loud, that blaring horn, and probably one of the toughest teams in hockey on the ice. Obviously the team's a little bit different, but how will the crowd be? How will the fans in LA be? Because obviously when they won in 2012, there was the jokes by Conan O'Brien saying, oh my goodness, pretty quiet today. How could we have known that they won a Stanley Cup and yada, yada, yada. But I don't know. Like, I'm curious to see what the reaction is here because the team had not been great for a while here. And, will there be that same kind of support for this team come game 3 tomorrow night? I hope so. It makes things a lot more entertaining and certainly makes things a little bit tougher on the opposing team, especially for the Oilers. So we'll have to wait and see. 10 o'clock start time, like I said, at Crypto.com Arena tomorrow night. City Life Project says the team is now a better crap team. The Edmonton Oilers. Like I said, I never said that there was not any holes on this hockey club. There are still some holes with the Edmonton Oilers. We'll get to Leafs and Bolts here in a second, guys, but do you need a new hockey stick? Well, all the big brands keep raising their prices, making the game more unaffordable than ever before. Inflation, it's a fun thing. But you don't have to fall for that. Pro Rock Hockey Sticks, a true Canadian company with real morals, offers players of all levels a top-of-the-line stick at a fraction of the cost. It's lighter, more balanced, and has more customizable options than anything off the rack. Check out the family-run business today at prorock.com. So, by the way, thank you all for joining us here on this Thursday edition of World Hockey Report. Coming up at the top of the hour, Armando Velez will be joining me from his car, driving to FLA Live. He'll help us tee up the Florida Panthers and Washington Capitals game 2 tonight. Armando Man, as I like to call him. He is the host of Locked On Panthers. He will give us the latest from that. But let's talk about that Toronto-Tampa game last night, okay? The defending Stanley Cup champions, right? They get blown out in game 1. And, of course, all of Toronto, they did what they did before the Philadelphia 76ers Raptors series. Raps in 4. They're going to beat up Joel Embiid, and they're going to smack around James Harden. The Raptors in 4. And then they lost. They lost in 6 games. Shouldn't even been 6 games, let's be honest. But, to my point, in typical Toronto fashion, everyone loses their minds. Oh, the series is over. We killed the Lightning. And we talked about it with Stephen Ellis on Tuesday from the Hockey News. This series is not over. And the Lightning showed that last night. And now, granted, though, I think Toronto was trying to bury him again like they did in game 1 in the first 5 minutes. They were coming out hard. They were getting chances. Andrei Vasilevskiy, though, made some big saves. And you always talk about how important a goal is at the end of a period or at the beginning of a period. Well, Victor Hedman outweighting Jack Campbell, as a goaltender, I get annoyed when I see that play. I saw Jack Campbell try to make a move, did too much, and allowed Victor Hedman to sneak one in with just a couple seconds left in the first period. That was not good. Not good at all. So it made it 1-0, and it really turned the tide in terms of the Lightning. Glenn Kaplan jumps on Facebook there. The Boston Bruins were so dirty last night. How did David Pastrnak not get ejected? Intentionally injured Antti Raanta, bleeding, and it was reduced from a major to a minor. Initials for a phrase I can't say here on this program. The NHL doesn't care about player safety at all. 2 nights in a row that happened. The NHL refs as a clown show. Glenn, there will be a day when something happens to the Department of Player Safety that I will have a conversation with everyone here in attendance here on World Hockey Report. And I told Janner today, I'm like, it might be today, but I think we're okay right now. And I understand your point, Glenn. Going back to the Antti Raanta hit last night, David Pastrnak, the argument against the being a major or a suspension was Pastrnak was going in. It looked like he tried to. It looked like he made an effort to stop. It was a penalty, 100%. And we've seen it before where guys have been injured and they do call a major out of it. Of course, then again, there is the infamous Joe Pavelski hit against the Vegas Golden Knights from 2019, but that's a discussion for a different day. We've already been down that road a time or two in the last 3 years, but I see where you're angry. And, I'll say this. If it were Brad Marchand, I think there might have been more supplemental discipline because of the fact he has the history. Pastrnak, while he is a little chippy, I think that he doesn't get as much as a guy like Marchand would. But yes, your point, Boston, they're a team that plays on the edge. And they've been able to get away with it for the longest time. That is why when they had to give up 9 power plays to Carolina last night, everyone was shocked. But now, before my tangent goes any further, let's run it on back here to the Tampa-Toronto series. Where we left off, Victor Hedman scored to make it 1-0. And early on in the second period, Leafs coming hard. They're trying to get the tying goal right away, get back into it. The crowd at Scotiabank Arena, a little tentative after going down 1-0. And then Andrei Vasilevskiy made the save at the playoffs so far. Sorry, Mike Smith. Sorry, Marc-Andre Fleury. Andrei Vasilevskiy robbing Timothy Liljegren early on in that second period. And I literally said to myself, City Life Project says, go Tampa. And, if you want to cheer for Tampa, that's fine. I mean, cheer for the team that's, oh, you're just like cheering for Tom Brady. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to go with that with you. But that save, I would watch it, and I remember like a light went in my head, and I said, well, this game's over. Because in game 1, Vasilevskiy doesn't make that save. Game 2, Vasilevskiy makes that save. And that just shows how strong mentally this team is and how focused Vasilevskiy is. There's a reason why they have not lost back-to-back playoff games in 3 calendar years. Since losing to Columbus, they have never lost back-to-back games in the playoffs. The bubble playoffs 2020, won the cup, never lost back-to-back. Last year, same thing. And now, so far in 2022, same thing once again. This team has found a way that when they get knocked around, when they get punched in the mouth, they get back up, reset, and go back at it and try it again. This team does not let 2019, 2018, 2017, everything before not 2017. They didn't make the playoffs that year. But to my point, that just shows how this team has grown so much. That's why it says like we kept nagging on Tampa and all the time, like this team is too good and they keep failing all the time. There's not enough grit. There's not enough mental toughness. Well, now they have it. And while people think that this team is tired, they're fatigued because they've played a lot of hockey and you can't win 3 in a row in the salary cap. The mental toughness of this team and the fact that, yes, while they lost the Coleman, Gord, and Goudreau line, sure, the mental toughness of this team, and the majority of them are still back on this team this season. They all know each other very well, and they all know what it takes to win the silver jug at the end of the year. That's why you can never count them out. That's why Stephen Ellis picked Tampa to win. I'm not sold on picking Tampa to win the Cup, but I'm not sold to pick Colorado to win because Colorado doesn't have that kind of mental toughness. We'll get to them here in a minute. They might not need mental toughness in this series, let's be honest, against Nashville. But to my point, that's why Tampa is such a good team. They have all-star players, all-star goaltending, all-star defense, and an all-star coach. And they still have a pretty all-star general manager, too, in Julian Breezewald. He's done a pretty good job since Yzerman came back to Detroit. That's what makes the Bolts probably the best team in the league, and given the fact that they know what they need to do. Okay, imagine being a kid in class here. This will be my last little reference on this little soiree of going on here about the Tampa Bay Lightning. Imagine being a kid that, tries hard all the time and gets good grades, but never gets like valedictorian or whatever, right? Always comes up short to some other kid that just happened to be a little smarter or something like that, or got a better grade in his ACTs. Well, then you'll realize like, well, maybe I don't need to try as hard because I'm already smart. I'm already good at all these subjects or whatever. What if I just do what I need to do the bare minimum, and, when we get to the end of the year exam, then we'll try hard. That is what the Tampa Bay Lightning are. They go through the entire year. They get their A minuses, their A's, their B plus, whatever. They get enough to, be in the running to be the best in the school or whatever. And then at the end of the year, the final exams, they nail them all because why? They want to actually be there at the end. They're not worn out by come June or May in school. I just made a school reference. I've been out of school for like 8 years, and I just made a school reference. But that's my point. Tampa knows they don't have to burn themselves out. And when we talk with Mondo Man here, Armando Velez, about the Florida Panthers, we'll get on that topic about, the Panthers trying so hard during the regular season. The Lightning don't need to do that. They didn't do it last year. They went as the number 3 seed in the Central Division, took on the home ice advantage Florida Panthers, and that series could have been done in 4 or 5 games, let's be honest. Because Tampa knows that, hey, it doesn't matter until we get to these playoffs. And if we get knocked around, so what? We're good enough to come back. Now, Toronto, going back to Tampa, which is a sneakishly tough barn to play in, guys. Let's be honest here. Amalie is not fun if you're the road team in the postseason because now the fans expect to do well at their own rink. So I really think Toronto's going to have to just put that game behind them. They did make it close, sure. Mitch Marner scores. Michael Bunting, who I totally forgot missed game 1, gets a goal. And of course, the great play by TJ Brody. And I think Toronto knows that they have another gear as well. They just had obviously giving up 7 power plays to Tampa didn't help either. 3 for 7, Tampa went on the power play. Kucherov scores. We mentioned the Hedman goal. Brandon Hagel even scored. And Hagel's been probably the most underwhelming trade deadline acquisition so far this season. And he even scored last night. I expect Toronto to come back with a much better game. But now Tampa has confidence once again that they can just take care of this. So if Toronto doesn't come out with the same effort they had back in game 1 and the early parts of game 2, and maybe if you want to say what they tried to do, rallied late in the third period there, I really think that, they have to bring that if they want to not fall down 2-1 here, because if they go down 2-1 and going into game 4 with Tampa at that point winning back-to-back games, it's going to be tough to win game 4, and then you're going to have to try to win game 5 at home to try to force a game 6. And I picked Tampa in 6 for a reason, guys, because they're mentally tough. Toronto, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Well, 20 doesn't count because they didn't even make it to the actual playoffs. They lost in the qualifying round, but 5 straight trips to the postseason, they have found a way to lose in whatever opening round they were in. City Life Project says anyone but Toronto sports, rather. I know. Anyone but the Leafs. I get it. I get it. Anyone but the Leafs. I'm more of one of the anyone but the Bruins kind of guy, but you know what? I understand. I understand when people don't like Toronto. The Toronto Sports Network. I get it. I know I know how that works. I did see something funny on the Beaverton the other day. The Beaverton, for our folks south of the border, is the Onion, but Canadian. And someone said, I forgot what the title of the article was, but it was something along the lines of Toronto fans appalled that TSN doesn't cover more Toronto sports or something like that, or they're appalled that there's too much coverage, something like that. It was pretty funny if you ask me. Taryn Boot came back earlier with all biases aside. I think the Oilers will win the series if they win Game 3. Taryn Boot coming hard there with the Oilers. If they win tomorrow night at Crypto.com Arena, it could be interesting to see if they can go the rest of the way. And I know a lot of people are yelling right now, Edmonton has at least won a playoff series since either of the two last lockouts. And I understand that. 2017 was a thing. I do recall that. That was a big moment. Orange Crush really coming back hard. But now they wear those blue sweaters that I'm just kind of a whatever thing. But like I said, coming up here in just a few minutes, we have Armando Velez talk about the Florida Panthers. We will also go into the rest of the series as well. We're going to talk about the Rangers and Penguins after their 3 overtime thriller on Tuesday night. They're going to get ready for Game 2 tonight after already playing 2 games. I think this is going to be a fun series, and I knew it was going to be a longer one as well, but I did pick Pittsburgh in 7, mainly because of the fact that Tristan Jarry was not in the lineup. But let me just make sure Armando's good to go. Sorry, I got to make sure that everyone's on par for this show here, because it's always fun here on World Hockey Report 3 times a week for the playoffs. I'll be back, of course, on Tuesday with Kuehl Tuesdays here on WHR for the playoffs. I will say I'm going to be gone 1 week. I'm going to be gone not next week, but the week after. I'm going to Mauritius. It's a little island off of 300 miles off the coast of Africa. But I will be able to watch games. I did the math. If I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I can watch the West Coast games. 6 o'clock over there, I can watch the West Coast games, and I'll try to... Maybe the wife and I will have a couple fun nights where we'll take it all the way into the morning, whatever. I'll watch the games that way and sleep all day. Sleep on the beach all day off the coast of Africa. It'll be fun. But make sure, like I said, folks, follow us at World Hockey RPT on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and Facebook, wherever you want to follow us. And be sure to, of course, you guys are watching us right now on 12 Ounce Sports or the Hockey Podcast Network. Be sure to follow them as well. Hit the subscribe button on whatever you're watching, guys, and give them a follow as well. And we mentioned if you're looking to add to that closet this summer, go check out 12ouncesportsradio.com/store for all of your World Hockey Report merchandise, from hats to hoodies and everything in between. 12ouncesportsradio.com/store has you covered for all of your World Hockey Report swag. We'll take a break, folks. When we come back, it'll be Mondo Man, Armando Velez from Locked On Florida Panthers, joining me to talk about the Florida Panthers and the Washington Capitals. Can the Cats come back in Game 2? We'll find out when we come back right after this here on World Hockey Report.
Hockey fans, feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Take your game to the next level with Pro Rock hockey sticks. Pro Rock is changing the way we buy top-of-the-line twigs. They're lightweight, balanced, and provide the perfect kick point, whether you're a pro hockey player or a beer league legend. Pro Rock hockey sticks are made for you. They're at a price point you can't beat, so check them out today at prorock.com. Play like a Pro Rock.
Hockey fans feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Take your game to the next level with Pro Rock hockey sticks. Pro Rock is changing the way we buy top-of-the-line twigs. They're lightweight, balanced, and provide the perfect kick point, whether you're a pro hockey player or a beer league legend. Pro Rock hockey sticks are made for you. They're at a price point you can't beat, so check them out today at prorock.com. Play like a Pro Rock.
Hockey fans feel the action like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the National Hockey League. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If the sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
And welcome back, everyone, here to World Hockey Report. That is right, here on this Thursday edition of WHR. Be sure to jump in the chat with us, guys, as always. Hashtag WHR on Twitter, at World Hockey RPT. And, of course, as always, you can follow me, the Insider of the Insiders, Tyler Kuehl, every single day at TJQ29. I promise sometimes I can be kind of funny. I try to have some fun with everyone joining us. But before we get to our guests here, get ready to win, guys, with Billy's Smelling Salts. Billy's Smelling Salts are for gamers, athletes, and competitors alike who want to get in the zone. Us at World Hockey Report teamed up with Billy's, and if you see the promo code WHR when you use it when checking out, that's WHR, you'll save yourself some money. The highest quality smelling salts in the game and the best price point if you use the promo code WHR on Billy's. We're going to start talking about the games that are going on tonight. And the first one we're starting off with is actually the first game on tap of the night. Taryn is watching from cheering the Flames from Australia. Taryn Boots from Down Under. Good day, mate. But we're going to say good day now to the guy that covers the Florida Panthers every single day on the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On Panthers. He is none other than my guest right now, Armando Velez. Armando, man, how you doing, buddy?
Tyler, it's great to be connecting with you again. It's been a little bit. Thank you for having me on.
It has been a while. First thing I got to say, when you first joined the chat here, I said it right away, man. Nice suit. I love the suit, man. Look at you getting all get up and stuff.
Thank you. Doesn't happen too often as I am coming into town to cover the series. So it's been great these last few days coming in and seeing what the Panthers have been doing, and of course the Capitals as well. Seeing both sides of the coin and being able to hear what the players are saying and being able to hear how coaches' mindsets are, regardless of whether Peter Laviolette's squad is up 1-0 or Andrew Burnett's squad down 0-1.
You know, I got to ask you about that because unfortunately, a lot of us haven't had that opportunity to go really mingle with coaches, at least in the NHL, because they've been pretty strict this year. How is it being a member of the press and trying to interact with players and coaches, or is it still pretty distant right now? Obviously, Florida is a little different from the rest of the United States, but how are things being a member of the media right now?
It's we still have to wear masks when we're in the press rooms and be at least 6 feet apart, so we can't even get as close to players. But of course, if you're not near it, it's optional for being up there. But if you're near players, you have to wear one.
Okay, that makes sense. You want to be safe and whatnot because we saw Darren Dreger release what the Canadian teams are doing right now, Mondo, of how to avoid testing. Because if you fly into the United States, you have to test at the airport. And what they're doing is so Calgary, Edmonton, and Toronto are all busing across the border to fly down eventually then to where they're going. So like Toronto, I knew had to bus to Buffalo to fly down to Tampa. Edmonton flew into Vancouver and then bust across to Washington, then flew down to LA. And I think Calgary is doing something similar, going down to Dallas after tonight's game. So everyone's getting a little bit weird with the COVID rules, obviously. But
that sounds annoying to do all that travel to get to another.
Hey, man, because it's the Cup, right? Because it's the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
But I do got to ask you though, how are you feeling after game one? Because I went into this series. We knew Florida has this offensive juggernaut, scoring at will, able to come back from 5-1, 5 goals down, 12 goals down, whatever. They can do all that. They have a couple of good goaltenders, and we thought, you know what? The Capitals, Vanacek and Samsonov have been a little underwhelming. Vanacek got the start in game one, of course, there. But then Washington did this thing where they turned back the clock to 1997-98, Jacques Lemaire, New Jersey Devils, and just tried to do a trap on the Panthers, and it kind of worked, leading to the game one win.
Yeah, and I predicted the Panthers to win this series in 6, and I said that they would drop at least one of their 2 home games. I was thinking more of the lines of game 2, not game 1, but Washington set the tone. They showed that they are still a very experienced bunch on the other side. I mean, they won the Cup like 4 years ago, and a lot of their pieces from that Cup are still around on that team too. And the top 9 has been great for the Florida Panthers, but the third line specifically only has 6 playoff games of experience, which is Mason Marchment from last year's playoffs.
Yep.
And Anton Lundell is just making his first year in the NHL. I mean, he's played in World Juniors, he's played in World Championships, and that's and Sam Reinhart has been in Buffalo too. So they haven't been making the playoffs. So I expect a better showing for this Panthers team coming into this game. A lot of their mistakes. I mean, Bob gave up a big rebound while the Washington Capitals were 5-on-3, which led to the first goal by Tom Wilson. And Peter Laviolette did confirm that Tom Wilson is out tonight with a lower body injury. So, and also the thing is, for game 3, it's a matinee 1 p.m. matchup. So for the Capitals to travel out of Florida, don't know if they get a practice in for a matinee game. Game 3, if I'm trying to connect the dots, game 3 might sound unlikely as well for Tom Wilson. But after that first goal that Bob gave up on a big rebound 5-on-3 in favor of Washington, even though one of them expired with 1 minute left and there's 5-on-4, the Florida Panthers shot themselves in the foot. The Florida Panthers were complaining a little bit about a possible missed icing call, but 15 seconds later, Mackenzie Weegar coughs up the puck. I'm not going to blame an icing on that.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Weegar coughs up the puck as he's exiting the zone. Ovi gets it to Kuznetsov, and then Bob had no chance on that one. And then there was one where the Florida Panthers were a little late to get back. Claude Giroux doesn't get back, and Sergei Bobrovsky has no chance as well. So I'm very confident in Sergei Bobrovsky heading into Game 2. I felt good after Game 1, and that the fact that the conversation isn't if Spencer Knight should start. That's not the conversation, thankfully. But the vibes around the Panthers when they have their media availability is all good. They're all positive. I mean, 58 wins this season, 29 of them have been in comeback fashion, where they've been behind at least once. Another podcast network, the Steve Dangle Podcast Network, spoke about how, maybe a lot of people might have exposed Florida because people think about their overtime wins, which before even getting to the shootout, 13-2 for this Florida Panthers team.
And there's no 3-on-3 obviously in the playoffs.
Exactly. But the fact I think about it as the fact that they're not even allowing it to get to a shootout too, and they're winning it, just goes to show how fast they are at their skating too. I know 3-on-3 is different, but it just shows that they have felt so much adversity this year. So I think that this is, I wouldn't say it's no different, but it's just you have to think about the fact that you've been able to pass a lot of these tests early on in the season, that the team has been through a lot of it, that they believe themselves that they can do it again.
And that's why maybe while I know it was a little bit of a downer the way the series with Tampa last year went, the Battle of Florida that we finally got, and it was exciting, it was fun, it was physical, chippy, whatever you want to have with it. It was obviously a bummer that the Panthers, fell in that series to the eventual Stanley Cup champions, albeit. But, maybe that gives this group a little bit of experience going in now. And you mentioned how kind of positive they were. Yeah, they lost Game 1, but you know what? I'll be honest with you, Mondo. I really thought after losing Game 1 that, yes, while they did win 2 games after that, it just felt like Florida was not able to have their mojo back. They weren't able to have that spark that they had in that first game back in 2021. So now they go into this series, albeit they're taking on, a little bit more of a weathered Washington Capitals team, a little bit older, yes, experienced, but now they know Tom Wilson's out of the lineup, who I said could be really the key factor in this series to really knock around some of the Panthers' top players. He's not there. They kind of have an idea. I'm like, you know what? We lost 1 game. It's more important because we talked about Tampa right before we had you on here, Mondo, about never losing back-to-back games in the playoffs anymore. As long as you don't lose 2 in a row, that's all important right now, right?
Yeah, and the Florida Panthers, before the month of January, they were 4-4-4 on the road with a -1 goal differential in those 12 games. After
Who
that,
knew
they
FLA
finished
Live was going to be such a tough place to play in.
Yeah, only 7 losses all year at FLA Live Arena. But 4-4-4, they start in their first 12 games, and then they end up with the second best road record in the NHL after that. So they know they got to win tonight. They know they got to get at least 1 in Washington as well. But also the Panthers are not looking that far ahead. It's a 1 game at a time. Carter Verhaeghe spoke to us earlier today, and he spoke about how the opposition has to win 4 of these first. They only won 1. So let's control us, quoting Carter Verhaeghe, and let's get a dub tonight. So that's what the mindset is. And also, Andrew Burnett has shifted around the lines in morning skate today.
Oh yeah.
Sam Reinhart is now on the second line with Sam Bennett and Jonathan Huberdeau. So it's one of the Capitals reporters call it Sam's Hub with Huberdeau.
Sam's Hub.
And
it wouldn't be. Well, it's Sam's. I can see why they're trying to make that connection, but it's Sam's Hoob because it's Hubie Doobie Doo. Jonathan Huberdeau.
Yep.
Steve Goldstein, give him a shout out here. RJ Calabro, Sports Schedule Gamers NHL Hockey Update says hi on YouTube. Hi. If you guys are in the chat, by the way, if you're watching on the Hockey Podcast Network and or 12-ounce Sports, give Mondo and I a question, or you know what? Just hit the subscribe button since you're here. I mean, you may as well. It's just you take the mouse, you hit click, and then boom, you're done. You never have to touch it ever again. Not like you have to keep doing it every single time. It's not a chore, Mondo. It's a nice, easy thing they can do. But you mentioned Bobrovsky, and you mentioned the juicy rebound they gave up to Tom Wilson. There was that one instance on the power play where literally he looked like he forgot where the goal crease was. And I said to myself, and like, in Cody Janzen and I we're former goaltenders, we're just losing our minds because we're like, just stay in the net. Like, just calm down. And Bob has always had that, he's always had that issue sometimes where he gets way too excited for a game one and just completely forgets how to goalie. Do you think he's going to probably be a little more calm tonight because, you know, he knows he's got to play better, and he knows that the Capitals have weapons, that he can't just float around in the zone and be, you know, playing at the hash marks, right?
I actually thought Bob was very sensational on Monday. There was a breakaway that he stopped on Alexander Ovechkin as well.
Oh, yeah.
And there was an open net as well, and he was able to get back into his net and save a goal, what would have been a goal by Lars Eller as well. So and TJ Oshie, and there was another one that was on a breakaway as well. So I'm very confident that Bob will be just as good as game one. He was third star of the game, despite losing on Tuesday. So Sergei Bobrovsky looks a lot better, and it's if we see a Bob-like performance down 0-2, you might start the conversation. But what matters is that even if the Florida Panthers go on a 5-4 win and they're not doing it in comeback fashion, they're still going to feel good about Sergei Bobrovsky as well. It's just all situational with how long his leash is. Are they going down 0-3 or 0-3 early? Are they up 3-0 and they give up a lead? It just depends on how the game flows and how if they believe that it's goals given up with traps in the neutral zone or failing on a zone exit as well. So that's really how they're going to judge it based on whether Bob plays or not. But game one didn't give him that indication that he should be pulled, and I'm in agreement with the coaching staff.
Oh, I don't think Bob should get pulled. I mean, like you said, he made some big saves. There was just a couple instances where I was like, "Are you okay, Bob? Like, did someone give him creatine before the game or something?" He got a little too excited. But, you know, and I think the big thing for me, like, people that if you just look at the box score, you see the shots where there were 70 shots, 38-32 in that game one on Tuesday, but it didn't seem like they had, you know, you get a goal from Giroux, and, you know, Sam Bennett also chimes in as well. I think one of the most underrated players in the NHL right now. I think Calgary just didn't know how to use him, and that's a real bummer because I thought he could have been. If he was on Calgary right now, he'd be a perfect Dale Sutter guy, but that's a discussion for a different time. Of course, Florida, you guys are probably happy he's down there. It just seemed like they weren't able to get, I don't want to say, I mean, they got 32 shots, but it just didn't seem like they were able to get consistently good zone entries with possession. Like I said, it seemed like Washington just turned the clock back on him. And, you know, what do you have to change up? You mentioned Burnett's trying to move the lines around a little bit. It looks like he's trying to maybe try to spread the scoring out a little bit, trying to get a little bit more depth is what it looks like he's trying to do here. Because, you know, when you're down one, especially if down one as the President's Trophy winning team with home ice advantage, you know, you don't want to hit the panic button yet, but you almost got to try to find a way to get better chances. Because we mentioned Vitek Vanacek has not been as impressive as we thought he was going to be.
Mm-hmm. And people question whether he could have made that save on Sam Bennett's goal where he took it all like by himself, gets it from the top slot blocker side, and Vanacek read that incorrectly. Yeah. But yeah, I think they're trying to spread the wealth as far as scoring, because I did mention that third line that played in game one, who has been really together all year, barely any playoff experience. So they're shifting Giroux down to the third line for tonight's game. At least that's what's being placed in morning skate. So of course the Barkov, Duclair, Verhaeghe line, that's a speed line. Of course, with Barkov's leadership, his ability to win faceoffs as well. And also it helps Claude Giroux. It helps Anton Lundell's game too, which Lundell, he missed 15 games this year. If he didn't miss that time, he would have been in a better conversation for the Calder Trophy, along with Michael Bunting and Moritz Seider up there. So
I was about to say, those are Mo Seider and Raymond they're pretty good candidates. But to your point, yeah, Lindell's been a big player. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it really helps Anton Lundell out too, and it creates more of that scoring on the other end. And of course, this is a team that's average over 4 goals a game. And of course, we all know that games slow down in the playoffs. But I think what really set the tone was just going down 5-on-3 within the first 4 minutes, because the majority of this team rested in the final week of the season. So now that they're getting in game action again, it feels like they were a little bit out of routine in that last week. So setting the tone early and kind of going on the acceleration, as one of my guests yesterday explained it, that they're hitting the acceleration on Mario Kart a little too early, and then they get trapped where they are, so they fall behind.
Right.
So that's kind of the analogy that my guest Aaron Brown made on that. So, and I think that is a product of having really a week off. And if you look at the Tampa Bay game the week before the playoffs started, that's really when the foot started going off the gas pedal for the Florida Panthers. And it's really about, now that they got a game in, they have a little bit of, not a blueprint, but like a little bit of a reference now to what the Capitals, how fast they are, how slow they are as well, how they block zone entries as well, how they get a stick into the passing lane as well. Because let's also not forget, in the regular season series for the Florida Panthers and the Washington Capitals, their last game was in the month of November.
Yeah.
They played all 3 of their season series games in November. So you have about 4 or 5 months without seeing these guys. So now that they have a game under their belt, I think they're in better position to make some adjustments here and there.
And that's the big thing too. And that's where you really see a really good team able to do that on the fly. And that's why Tampa has won twice in consecutive years. And you're really going to see where Andrew Burnett makes his, shows that he has merit as a head coach. Because, everything that happened this year with Coach Q, I know it's been well documented, but obviously in a coaching capacity, Coach Q has more experience in this scenario than Andrew Burnett does. It's going to be interesting to see what he does here. But let's kind of look at the season as a whole here, Mondo. This is a team that won the President's Trophy. Never done it before. This team has never done it. This is a team that they won the division recently. Actually, the last, what is it now? Except for last year, their previous 2 trips to the playoffs were division championships. 2012, the Southeast, and then 2016, the Atlantic.
The Atlantic. Mm-hmm.
What is your viewpoint on this season? Because, the story is, of course, the President's Trophy. The best team in hockey doesn't always win the Stanley Cup. You have to go back to 2013 when the Chicago Blackhawks had that historic start to the season to find a President's Trophy winning team that won the Stanley Cup. If for some reason something goes sideways and crazy, all of us here on World Hockey Report picked Florida because eventually Ovechkin's going to get tired. The Capitals will wear off. We think so. But what do you think is how far do the Panthers have to go, I guess is my question, for this to be considered a successful season in your eyes? President's Trophy is great, but playoff success probably holds a little bit more cash to the pocket.
Eastern Conference Final at least. But front office will also tell you winning it all as well, because they're the ones that make the move. They're the ones who's confident in this. But I also consider all the players who are going to be UFAs even prior to all the trades. Think about Noel Acciari. I think about Mason Marchment, who's been such a great pickup. Not pickup. He got traded to the Panthers like 2 years ago. That was Dale Talon trade, by the way.
Yep.
From the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think of players like that as well. I think of the players that they did trade for. Ben Sherratt, who they gave up a first-round pick for. Claude Giroux, who they gave up a 2024 first-round pick to. Those are expiring contracts. There's rumors that Claude Giroux could sign with the Ottawa Senators this summer.
Yep.
So the time to win, in their eyes, is now. This is the time to do it. And of course, for me personally, growing up as a fan and now covering them, I've never seen a playoff series win for this team.
Yeah.
So going back years from now, if they do lose in a conference final and they at least make it, it'll look great. But in the here and now, this team is well positioned to go all the way. And of course, I was listening to the show right before I came on and talking about the talking points about Tampa Bay pacing themselves throughout the season, then accelerating, It's like they're running the 1600 in track.
Yeah. Me and my awful, college exam reference.
Yeah. I'll compare it to a track, like running the 1600 and pacing yourself a little bit.
There you go.
The Florida Panthers maybe ran the 800 in a way, so they don't have to pace themselves as much. But this franchise has a chip on their shoulder, so maybe that's their reasoning behind doing all that. And I think of it as the Tampa Bay Lightning have a lot of playoff experience, but give yourself that home ice advantage because that is an extra layer to possibly beating them in a second round series. And of course, the series still have to play out the way they do. Of course, it's tied 1-1 in the Toronto-Tampa series, and the Panthers are down 0-1. But still, I compared it to the NBA, where I'm a Miami Heat fan as well.
Yep.
Throughout the Big Three era of LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, there's one team that always challenged them in the playoffs, but never beat them. It was the Indiana Pacers, coached by Frank Vogel. They had Paul George,
that's right. Yep.
Danny Granger, Roy Hibbert, Lance Stevenson, all those boys. Time after time after time, they couldn't get past the Miami Heat. In their final attempt throughout the Big Three era, the Indiana Pacers did everything they can to have that number one seed. They wanted that number one seed badly so that they can beat the Miami Heat because they wanted a Game 7 on their court. The Heat won that series in 6.
Just had to make sure you couldn't get there. That's exactly what you got to do.
Yeah.
Adam Vanilla comes in here to the question here, Armando, and you'd probably be better one to answer this. Obviously, you're at the games more often than I am in FLA Live. Then again, I haven't been to Florida in about 7 years.
You got to come over.
He says, as a Hispanic, I'm curious. Have you seen a growth of the Hispanic fans at Panthers games over the years?
Absolutely, and winning has a lot to do with it. And South Florida is weird because a lot of the fans that are living in Florida come from the Northeast. They're from New York. They're from Massachusetts. They're from Philly.
Snowbirds, yeah.
There are a lot of snowbirds. They live there. So, of course, when their teams come travel, a lot of the fans there historically, and it's not just hockey. It's not just hockey, I promise.
Yeah.
You see a lot of opposing fans, and people think it's bandwagon, but it's more like snowbirds, first of all, and second, winning. Winning will do that. And Broward County, where the Florida Panthers are located, isn't as Hispanic driven as Miami-Dade County, which is, I'm from Dade. Where I'm from is 45 minutes south of FLA Live Arena.
Yeah.
The Panthers aren't marketed as much over there as they were. I mean, from the ownership that they have now, there's 4 different owners in a like 10-year span or 15-year span. The team wasn't any good neither. So it was hard to get that marketing out there in a not, and it's not in the best location neither as well. So
right.
The not winning and the not and how far away it is, I don't want to say it's an excuse that doesn't draw the crowd. But now that everyone's talking about it as well, they're winning. They're marketed so much better because ownership is actually investing. That is what's creating. But ultimately, the cure is winning. Let's not forget that. And that's what's bringing more of the Hispanic population to games. Like one of the main Panthers followers on Twitter is a Hispanic hockey fan, and he's been to the game for years before the Panthers were good.
Yeah.
So people like that, and I hope people like myself, being a Hispanic that covers hockey, that creates more of a fan base as well. I never thought of it as like that. So that's a very good question. I never thought about whether it's a bigger Hispanic population or. It's funny because he's asking it while today is Cinco de Mayo.
That is right. Now, and it's something I've wondered as well, because obviously when the Panthers first came into the league, they were playing at the old Miami arena that had rats. Hence the infiltration of rats during the 96 Cup run, which is still the last time the Panthers had won a playoff series. And I wonder, because we've had this discussion 1,000 times over about the Ottawa Senators. They don't play in Ottawa. They played in Canada, a suburb outside of Ottawa, about a half hour away. And, there's been talks for years that they would move them back downtown to Ottawa near Parliament Hill and all that stuff where it's closer to everything. Do you think, because I know obviously the arena's nice. It's a great arena itself. The location is odd there for FLA Live, formerly known as the BB&T Center, the National Car Rental Center, 6 or 7 different names of that arena. But do you think, and I don't know how it works with FTX Arena there where the Heat play, but has the Panthers ever, you think, in your eyes or what you've heard, have ever wanted to go back to Miami?
I haven't heard anything about going back to Miami. I know they really make an emphasis of Broward County being their home.
Yeah.
And they like that. They like that small market feel to them. And I think it's pretty cool because let's take into consider that it's called the Florida Panthers, not the Miami Panthers, and it's named after the endangered species down there in Florida. That's the purpose of the name. So, and the way the Panthers fan base is kind of located around, there's a lot of people from Palm Beach County. There's a lot of people from the Treasure Coast as well. So that spreads them out even in the years that they weren't good. It's a more neutral location as far as distance and miles. But as far as how west it is in Broward County, right behind the arena, right behind the Sawgrass Expressway, all it is swamps. You can't build houses there. You just can't. It's impossible. What I'm thinking more of along the lines of downtown Fort Lauderdale, way more east near more of the major highways. I mean, their new ice facility that's going to open up in June is located in downtown Fort Lauderdale. A lot of the players live in downtown. So, yeah, they're building a new one in the War Memorial Coliseum. It's called their new one. They're the one that they've been practicing for years is in Coral Springs, which is more north near Palm Beach County.
Yeah, because we played there. We had ACHA Nationals there almost 10 years ago. But yeah, that's why I remember that. I'm like, that thing is it's a nice rink. It's a nice facility. I didn't know they were building a new one.
Yeah, they're building a new one in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So is the next thing an arena nearby that facility? Because they take pride in bringing Broward County's team.
Yeah.
And so I think if they do, it's going to be a new arena, not combined with the Heat.
Interesting. Wait, did you say it would combine with the Heat or would not?
It would not.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like the Miami Heat, that's more of a South Beach sort of thing. Basketball, obviously a little more, I'd say, pretty popular in that neck of the woods, obviously why it works. But it always made me wonder, because I remember when we went to Coral Springs, we went to the practice facility to play for the national champion or the national semifinal. We literally would drive every day on that highway by what was then the BB&T Center. I'm like,
Sawgrass Expressway.
Yeah, but we drove by it and I was just like, there's nothing here. It was so strange.
Yeah, it's all swamp right behind it. And if you take 75 going north towards Tampa, towards Naples, all land, no houses, swamp. Yeah, so but I even behind it that you can't build anything. I still really do like that small market community feel to it, because when you're cheering on a team for so many years and they're bad, when they finally win and they're relevant and then a town gets bought in, it feels so much sweeter.
Yeah. And then there are certain markets that don't have that problem. Toronto's one, Montreal's one, Chicago's a little bit hit and miss sometimes, but the people will still go to those games because it feels very corporate. But to your point, a passionate fan base, they will show up in droves when they're winning. Look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No one was showing up to them a couple of years ago, but now Tom Brady, was in town, and now everyone's all excited about the Buccaneers again. So, but before we let you go here, Armando, as we're wrapping things up here on World Hockey Report today, we will get to the rest of the series here in just a moment. We wrap things up here with Mondo Man, Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers on the Locked On Podcast Network. Mondo, who was your pick? Who are the two teams that are going to be in the Cup final coming up here in June? Are we going to make it to June? June or this summer? Who do you pick to be in the final and who takes home the silver jug?
I haven't made a Stanley Cup prediction, actually.
Too bad.
I did. My preseason prediction was Avs over the Islanders this season. Yeah.
You might be half right.
Yeah. and I was expecting the Florida Panthers to make it to at least the conference final, but now seeing that everything has changed with this team, not in my wildest dreams did I think that the Florida Panthers would have traded for Claude Giroux, a guy who's been to a Stanley Cup final.
Well, to your point, I don't think many of us thought Philly was going to be so bad that Claude Giroux was going to be traded, to your point.
I agree. And I think this is the year to do it. It's the time to do it, and the Florida Panthers will face off against the Colorado Avalanche, because in '96 I was only 3 at the time, so I have like no memory. They of course seeing the box score and seeing some of the replays, Bill Lindsay's iconic goal in the first round against Boston, which will forever be in Florida Panthers lore.
Yep.
On the way to the Cup, they got swept in the final round in the Stanley Cup final against Joe Sakic and Patrick Waugh. But I think that the Florida Panthers will. I think they'll do it. I think they'll win. I think they'll win it in 7 at home. So President's Trophy winner, they got home ice because they want that game 7 in FLA Live Arena. I think that this is the time to do it.
I wonder. That's a real good thought. I'd have to do some research on it. When was the last time the 2 best teams in the league faced off in the finals? That's a real man. I gotta do some research for next Tuesday, Mondo, because I gotta look that up, because that would be 1 and 2 in the league going head to head in the Cup final. I can't remember the last time that happened.
I could also see Calgary finding a way to get to the final too. If it's not Colorado, I gotta
find a way to score more than 1 against the Dallas Stars first of all. I think that's a big.
Hey, they gotta win. That's what matters to them. So, and Jacob Markstrom, former Florida Panthers prospect. It was only 16 shots on goal, but hey, a shutout, and I'll take pride in a former Florida Panther prospect doing it big over there.
Oh, doing it against his former team. Oh, that would be so hockey if that were to be the case. Mm-hmm. Oh man, Mondo.
Traded for Luongo.
Go ahead, Armando. Sorry.
He was traded for Luongo back in 2014.
And Vancouver has felt the financial burden ever since. Mm-hmm. My goodness. What a time to be alive. Armando Velez, ladies and gentlemen, of Locked On Panthers. Follow him, guys, at Mondo. Oh, God.
Mondo Man 12
still?
Mondo Man 12. Mm-hmm.
It is Mondo Man 12. Look at me remember things. Mondo Man 12. Follow him, guys, at LO_FLA Panthers to follow Locked On Panthers every single day, giving you every single game recap and more. Mondo, appreciate you jumping on here. I know we called you at the last minute to get you on today, but I really appreciate it, man. And use that suit well, man. Get yourself some good quotes from the guys when you talk to them tonight after the game.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Pleasure is mine. That was Armando Velez from the Locked On Podcast Network. A awesome guy, an awesome hockey guy. I love talking to him. So I guess full disclosure, I actually worked over with the Locked On Podcast Network for a little bit. And it was actually pretty cool. And they have a lot of great guys over there. And Mondo was one of them. Jack Bushman being another. Mike DiStefano with the Locked On Maple Leafs. Got to do a lot of collabs with those guys. They were fun. Sarah Avampado from the Los Angeles Kings. Of course, we already talked about them. So be sure to go check those guys out too. There's some good folks over there, guys. But also, let us wrap up this show today by talking about the other games going on tonight. But I should mention, though, do not forget, you can find the best player tracking information on Quack Stats. Follow them on social media and go check out their website and app today for more. Quack Stats for best player tracking information. So, Cats and Caps, game 2, that's actually at 5:30 Mountain Time, 7:30 local time there in Sunrise, Florida. The 7 o'clock game is the Rangers and Penguins. Now, this is people are still recovering from game 2, okay? It felt like game 2. Game 1, still recovering from it. It's going to be an interesting one because, Casey DeSmith, we found out it's a groin injury that he has. So he's out of the lineup. Tristan Jarry, still in a walking boot, which means, that's right, kids, Louis Domingue is going to start in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Louis Domingue, technically a former Stanley Cup champion. You're right. He was not on that team. That's right. He was on the 62-win Tampa Bay Lightning team, but Louis Domingue, a journeyman, wrong-handed catching goaltender, is going to start. And he looked good. And yes, the spicy pork and broccoli it's been a great story over the last couple days. The question is, how can he do in a start? Because there's a reason why he's been a journeyman backup goaltender. And yeah, Pittsburgh's going to have to play a really good defensive game in front of him. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of called out Brian Dumoulin prior to this series, and I wondered if he was going to be able to be a top defenseman still. And people were going at him. I thought he played a good game. Chris Letang had a great game. He played a lot of hockey in that triple overtime. Obviously, Malkin with the big goal. The thing with the Rangers is they got to get out in front. They got to score first again, and they got to stay out in front. They got to put the pedal to the metal because the Penguins, yes, Crosby's great. Gensel's great. Malkin's great. Brian Rust is amazing. Letang's having a real bounce back year. If you get them to chase for a long period of time, eventually, despite, Crosby being in his early 30s still, which is still crazy to me. The fact of the matter is this. They will wear down. And the Rangers have the youth. They have the speed. They have that salt and vinegar in their system that I think has really worn off the Penguins over the years. This is pretty much the same core. I mean, yeah, obviously there's been quite a few players between the 09 and the 16 Cup, but it's pretty much the same group that's won the last few cups with this, or last couple cups that are still there, right? So I'm really interested to see how can the Penguins come back and do it again in MSG, because if they win both games in New York, guys, holy cow, Pittsburgh will go back with a great opportunity to find a way to, dare I say, take care of business at PP&G in Pittsburgh. I mean, I don't think that was ever going to happen. It wasn't on my menu. Is there a way to follow Mondo on Twitter? Adam Bonilla, yes, there is. At MondoMan12. M-A-N, oh my gosh, I think it's M, yes. It is Mondo at M-A-N. Let me just type it in so I make sure I say it right for you guys. Mondo, yes, M-A-N-D-O, man, M-A-N, what? Yeah, 12, the number 12. I'm about to say I can't read today, even though I said it. Mondo Man 12, that's where you can follow him, Adam Bonilla, every single day on Locked On Florida Panthers. But back to the Rangers and Penguins here. I really think the Rangers can get back in this series. I did pick Pittsburgh in 7. I really think experience will come into play here because the Rangers haven't been in a real playoff series since 2017. This group hasn't done, and that last time they were in a postseason appearance of any kind was a 3-game sweep against the Carolina Hurricanes in the bubble in 2020. You want to know how crazy, how long ago that was? Henrik Lundqvist was still their goaltender, which does feel like a long time ago. Washington Capitals legend, by the way. Henrik Lundqvist. So that game is 7 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock local time, Mountain time. And then the 7:30, 9:30 game is the Nashville Predators and the Colorado Avalanche. Connor Ingram probably getting the start tonight for Nashville, and oh boy, I'm nervous for Nashville because this could get out of hand pretty quickly. I like to think that they can put up a fight. I'm not sure, but we'll just have to wait and see because. Listen, this looks like the Colorado Avalanche team that we've seen in the last 2 first rounds. Remember 2020? They take on the Arizona Coyotes and just light up poor Darcy Kemper, now their goaltender. Last year against the St. Louis Blues, light up Jordan Bennington, take care of him in 4 games. It's kind of looking like that again here with Nashville. So that's why I'm saying, I'm not going to go on the hype train for Colorado until I see what they do in round 2, because that's where they flamed out in the last 2 years. So it's not going to be easy for the Nashville Predators. Colorado looks like poised and ready to take a 2-0 series lead once again tonight. The game that's going to be very interesting, though, the 10 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Mountain time game, Dallas Stars and the Calgary Flames. Jacob Markstrom played well, as what Mondo mentioned before, former Florida Panther / Vancouver Canucks / Utica Comet. Got to make sure I say that because I actually saw him play for Utica when he got sent down from Vancouver during the American League playoffs one year. I am really intrigued to see how Calgary comes out because remember they scored first. Elias Lindholm gets that power play goal, and it just seemed like Dallas just went, okay, that's it, no more goals, and they just grabbed a hold of everything. And Janner says Dallas doesn't stand a chance. if you can hold Calgary, Janner, to 1 or 2 goals a game, and if Jason Robertson can get a little more comfortable in these playoffs, and Joe Pavelski can get a little bit more open, and Jamie Benn just kind of shows up, if he can, I'm just saying, guys, I'll say this, Jake Ottinger, in the nicest way possible, I'm going to say this, because the goaltenders hate when I say this. I hate it when someone tells me too. That was an easy game for Jake Ottinger. He made some nice stops. I'll say that right now. But that was an easy game for who they were going up against. That's because Rick Bowness knows how to play defensive hockey. They're playing that similar style that helped them win enough games to get to the final in 2020. And I really think that if they can't find any scoring touch whatsoever, even if they hold Calgary to 1 or 2 goals a game, to Janner's point, they won't stand a chance. But if they can find a way to score, get more offense going. Obviously, it's not easy playing in the Saddle Dome. Calgary, I go to any Canadian barn in the playoffs, except for Ottawa. But then again, we haven't really seen a whole lot of Ottawa in the last few years, so it's hard to tell. But then again, they weren't even able to sell out in the Eastern Conference Finals back in 2017, so take with that what you will. But you go to Calgary, you go to Edmonton, Vancouver when they're in, it's great. Montreal, obviously, Montreal illegally almost filled that barn in Bell Center last summer. And Toronto, obviously, we've seen the crowd they've had there. Usually that's like a nice wine and cheese crowd there at Scotiabank Arena. The Platinum Seat Ghost. Nope, people are there for the entire game, and they're yelling and screaming. It's pretty interesting. Winnipeg, obviously. Oh, my gosh. Folks in Winnipeg are nuts. It's awesome. Playing in the Saddle Dome's not easy. And if Dallas can at least put up a more consistent offensive effort tonight, maybe get one, and you go back to Dallas, maybe down 2-0, but maybe have a little bit more momentum, have a little more confidence in yourself. That's going to play a huge difference because I hate to say it, kids, and I know I had Bruce Levine on last week, and I love Bruce to death, and they're great people down there in Dallas, but American Airlines Center is not Reunion Arena. And if any of you are watching right now or listening and are old enough to remember Reunion Arena, that place could be a very hostile environment to play in. So it'll be interesting to see how they go tonight. Remember, like I said, that is the late game. I really like the schedule that they have going right now. I know it's going to change up a little bit on Saturday and Sunday. A couple earlier, I think there's an earlier game, like a 12:30 game on Sunday. But I really like the fact they have it set up where they have the same 4 series every other day. So you know exactly what matchup you have every single day. You don't have to try to figure out, because obviously the league is trying to get this playoffs over with so they can have a 100% normal season next year. So those are the games tonight. Obviously, we will not be able to recap all the games tonight for the rest of the week, but that's okay. We'll be back on Tuesday, Kuehl Tuesdays here on World Hockey Report, where I'm going to try to recap everything that's going on. We have a couple guests coming up on Tuesday as well that you're going to definitely want to tune into for that one. But that, folks, is it for this edition of World Hockey Report. A huge thank you once again to John Hoven, Mayor's Manor of the Los Angeles Kings, for jumping on early in the show. And, of course, as you just saw, Mondo Man himself, Armando Velez, jumping on here to talk about the Florida Panthers getting set for Game 2 tonight. It'll be an exciting slate of games. And guys, remember, if you missed any of those interviews, if you just tuned in right now, I do apologize. I am sorry. It's okay. You can watch on demand here on World Hockey Report or the Hockey Podcast Network or 12 Ounce Sports. But also, if you just don't want to see my ugly mug all the time, that's okay. You can look at Janner's every Wednesday and Thursday. I had to come in and fill in today for him. That's okay. But you can also listen to World Hockey Report. Thanks to our good friends at the Hockey Podcast Network, helping get it up every single show for you, where you can listen on wherever you get your podcasts, whatever podcast app you listen to. Be sure to follow us as well, guys, at World Hockey RPT. Follow me, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl, at TJKU29. It's going right along the bottom here, on this little bottom bar we got here. And so be sure to follow us on all your favorite social media accounts. Yes, even TikTok. It's even on there as well. But that is it, folks, for this episode of World Hockey Report. Thank you all once again. Thank you to our guests. Thank you for all chiming in the chat. If you were able to stop by for a moment, be sure to tune in next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday every single week for the playoffs. Because you want to know why? Because we got to talk about the playoffs. It's fun. It's exciting. And this only day 3 that we've just gone to. This is day 4. We've got a long way to go, but a short time to get there. Thank you all very much, guys, and we will see you next time. World Hockey Report.